What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. And in today's video we're going to be talking about UFC 300 as we have been this week, and I'm going to be discussing which fighters are under the most pressure and which fighters are under less pressure. We're talking the pressure rating going into UFC 300, who needs to perform and who is it not too bad if they go away with the loss. So that's what we're going to be discussing in today's video. I'm going to be rating everyone on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of how much pressure they are under, and I'm going to be talking about what a win or a loss would mean for them coming out of this fight or this event. Let's get started. So Deiveson Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt. I think pretty clearly out of the two of these, Deiveson Figueiredo is under the more pressure here. He is the higher ranked fighter. He's actually the only guy in this matchup that is ranked. Cody Garbrandt's getting a big jump up, so he's expected to lose. The odds reflect that. Most of the fans are picking Deiveson Figueiredo. If Cody Garbrandt loses, it's kind of expected. Look, will it be good? No. But what's really negative going to happen? He's going to get chinned again. We're going to laugh at him. We're going to say, Cody, no chin Garbrandt. We'll have some memes circling around. And then we'll go back to Cody beating unranked guys and looking like he's actually really good. And then he's just not going to beat anyone in the top 15. But if he wins, he has so much to gain here. So it's kind of like a fight where you're coming out of it, you take a big L, who gives a fuck, you're expected to lose. You win, crazy, big upset, and you're now a top 10 bantamweight. So I'm going to give him a pressure rating of 3 out of 10. But Deiveson Figueiredo, on the other hand, I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10 because he's under pressure here. He's a top 10 bantamweight. He's heavily favoured. And if he loses this, I think it's wraps on his title hopes at bantamweight, because right now he's riding a little bit of a he's riding a little streak at bantamweight. Or not really a streak, he's coming off a win. If he gets this one done, it's 2 in a row at bantamweight against 2 very solid fighters. Even though Garbrandt's not ranked, that's still a former champion on the resume. And if he loses, though, that's where you're dropping down a bunch. You're fighting an unranked guy. That's tough. You take that L. If you get chinned by Cody Garbrandt, that's rough. You're done in terms of title contention. So yeah, win probably leaves him 1 fight away from a title shot. Loss pretty much guarantees you ain't seeing Deiveson Figueiredo in the top 10 at bantamweight. But yeah, that's my opinion on this fight. But let's move on to the next fight. Bobby Green versus Jim Miller. Now, this fight is another one where I think one guy is under absolutely no pressure and another guy is under a bit of pressure. Obviously, Bobby Green, I'm not going to say he's under as much pressure as Figueiredo. I'm giving him a 5 out of 10. Jim Miller, I'm only going to give him a 1 out of 10 because he's under no pressure. But Bobby Green, he's already coming off a big, bad KO loss to Jaylen Turner. If he loses this one, especially if he gets finished, that's rough. That kind of eliminates him from the discussions of the top of lightweight, I guess. No one really considers him a viable contender, but right now he is ranked. He's fighting an unranked guy, so if he loses, he'll probably be unranked. If he wins, it's it doesn't give him crazy credit. He is favoured on the odds. So if he gets a win, we'll say good job, Bobby Green. But I think a lot of people are just going to be annoyed at him because they want Jim Miller to win at 100, 200, and 300. And that's really all at stake for Jim Miller. If he loses, you just don't get that cool moment. But apart from that, you're already unranked. And yeah, it's not that much of a big deal, to be honest. So I think Jim Miller's under no pressure. And a win gets you a big jump up and you can fight a top 10 guy or a big name or something like that. Even if you wouldn't win that fight, you could still get yourself a big spotlight. So I think Jim Miller, all to gain, nothing to lose. Bobby Green, a little bit more to lose, but still not crazy pressure for him. He just will lose his ranking if he gets chinned or loses this weekend. But let's move on to another fight. Jessica Andrade versus Marino Rodriguez. This one, there's not a lot of stakes on either side. These, even though they're top 10, or Andrade is number 4 ranked, Marino Rodriguez number 6 ranked, so they're pretty highly ranked in their division. But there's not really anything to lose. Both of them are kind of just looking to be either 1 win away from a title shot, or they could even get a title shot depending on how it goes. If Weili dominates Janan and then Tatiana Suarez is injured and there's no one else to go, because who else is Weili going to fight? I doubt they're going to give it to Werner Jandiroba. They need someone to actually look at the camera for promos. But the winner of this fight, Andrade has already lost, so that's the only reason I'm going to put Rodriguez as less pressure as her, because I just don't think there's as much upside for Andrade. If she wins, she's already been chinned by Weili in 40 seconds. But I'm giving Andrade a 4 out of 10, and I'm giving Rodriguez a 3 out of 10. in terms of their pressure ratings. Andrade, again, she's already lost a bunch. Rodriguez has lost less, so maybe you could say there's more to lose there, but both of these two have lost to the top girls in their division. They could be guys, we're not sure. But yeah, there's not really too much at stake for either one or too much to lose, so I'm going to just put them pretty low. But let's move on to the next fight. Jaylen Turner versus Renato Moicano. Now, I'm going to say this is slightly more pressure on Jaylen Turner, just given he is the favourite, given he is the higher ranked guy. People expect him to win more, and even though he does have his losses, he's lost a bunch in his career, and apart from that win against Bobby Green, he was on a 2-fight loss streak before that. It seems like there's still a bit of hope around Jaylen Turner as a guy that could be a top 5 guy. I still hear everyone saying, man, if Jaylen Turner's on, he's a top 5 guy, he's a problem for anyone on the feet. And he kind of is, unless you're Dan Hooker and just refuse to get knocked out. But if he loses to Moicano, who is proven to just not really be a top level guy, not that good on the feet, and just one of the lesser grapplers, or not one of those top 5 grapplers in the division, it's not going to be a good look for Turner. So I'm giving him a 4 out of 10 pressure ranking. I'm going to give Moicano 3 out of 10. A loss for money, Moik. It just halts the momentum. It takes off a bit of the steam, but he can probably still look at a paddy fight, and unless he just gets brutally chinned, if he just has really anything that isn't just completely embarrassed in this fight, then I think he can still get a paddy fight. That would still be a pretty appealing opponent that he could get. And a big win for him could give him like a Dariush type matchup, top 10 guy. Same for Turner. He kind of just always gets like jumps up by 1 or 2 just because he never really, he's like last time he beat Brad Riddell, and then I'm pretty sure, unless I'm mistaken, he got his next fight after that was Matej Gamrot, and he's got wrestled a bunch. But even he had moments there, and against Dan Hooker, it was pretty clear he was the better striker. So it's like, okay, he lost, he just got out-toughed. And then he chinned Bobby Green. So it's like, if this guy gets another big win, he gets that little jump up, he could probably look at even a Dariush fight himself as well, or maybe a Fiziev type matchup. But if he loses, he's probably fighting outside the rankings, and he's probably not going to be in the UFC's like sort of let's build this guy back, or let's give this guy a favourable matchup or a big spotlight. He's back to prelims. He's back to like maybe early main card pay-per-views or pay-per-view prelims or fight night main card. And he's not really going to be in that really like solid position to make a jump. And I think the talks of Jaylen Turner as like, damn bro, when this guy's on, he's still a problem for anyone. I think they will they will kind of die down if he loses this weekend. But still, I don't think much pressure on either guy. Just a top 10 fight at stake. And if they lose, whatever, they've already both lost. Let's move on, though, to the prelims. Diego Lopez versus Sadik Yusuff. Now, I think Lopez has not a lot to lose, and people might disagree. They might say, oh, he's this big hype train. He's got all this excitement behind him, and if he loses, that's going to go away. Like, I don't think so. Maybe if he gets, just slept out cold, just don't let that happen. But if that happens, then maybe. But I think this guy's still a fan favorite. He already lost. He lost in his debut, and it didn't fucking mean shit. If anything, he came out of that fight better than Evloev. Evloev was the guy that Dana was just shit-talking in his last fight after a solid fight, and he's gone decision every time, and no one really likes Evloev. Lopez lost and then beat 2 unranked guys, and we love him. He's awesome. So if he loses, I don't think much of that really goes away. He's just going to always be a fun fighter with good vibes. And if he wins, especially if it's a finish, that's like a top 10 guy. He could be looking at maybe the loser of Alja versus Kattar, especially if it's Kattar, maybe like a Josh Emmett fight or one of these guys. He could get a real big jump up. Compared to Sadik Yusuff, who is already coming off a loss where he won the first round dominantly and then kind of fell off a cliff and died later on in the fight. And he was the guy that they were kind of giving that main event opportunity. And if he loses this one, even though he's expected to slightly by the bookies, that'll probably mean he's outside the rankings. That'll kind of take away from any sort of relevant conversation around Sadik Yusuff. Like, you're going to be talking about featherweight, no one's going to be talking about Sadik Yusuff. He'll kind of just drift off into no one gives a fuck. But again, he doesn't really have crazy hype or steam behind him, so I won't say he's got too much to lose, but I think he's got a bit more to lose than Diego Lopez. Maybe you disagree, but that's just my opinion. Let's move on, though, to the next fight. Kayla Harrison versus Holly Holm. Now, this is one where, again, the disparity of pressure is definitely on the side of Harrison in terms of a negative way. She is so she's got so much pressure on her going into this fight. Holly Holm really has no pressure. She's expected to lose. She's like a plus 400 underdog. Kayla Harrison making her debut from PFL, massive favourite, needs to make weight, needs to really dominate Holly Holm to impress people and really get that hype still rolling, because right now everyone's kind of, the narrative around her is she could just smoke everyone, or she could just be like a complete bust and be terrible. We don't know, but she's like hailed as the savior of women's bantamweight. She's the one that's going to bring some interest to this division, and if she loses, we're back to Holly Holm, 42-year-old Holly Holm, Apex Fight Night main events, and that's just not going to be a good time. But if Kayla Harrison wins, at least it's somewhat of an interesting person to have at the top of the division. So that's what she has to gain. She gets the title shot, 95% chance if she wins, unless it's just an awful fight. I would assume she would get the next title shot, especially like her versus like Pena, because I'm hearing Pena versus Pennington's going to happen for UFC 302. No like strong confirmation there, but that's what I've heard. So if Pena wins that, imagine like Pena versus Harrison, and then the winner of that versus Nunes could come back. That would be sick. But yeah, I'm saying 9 out of 10 loss. She loses all the hype. Just retire at that point. There's no point to you sticking around. If you're not going to, as soon as you lose, if Harrison loses, just leave. There's no point to sticking around once you've lost. But again, back on Holly Holm, yeah, no pressure. She's just going to rock up and probably lose. If she has a solid performance, if she takes it to the cards and it's close-ish, she still comes away with some stock there. And yeah, I'm saying 2 out of 10 for Miss Holly Holm. And yeah, she's probably, with a win or a loss, her next fight's probably going to be in a fucking Apex as a main event, because the UFC is just stacking cards and then we're dealing with this shit as main events in the Apex. But let's move on to the next fight. Aljamain Sterling versus Kelvin. Now this is another one. All the pressure is on Mr. Aljamain Sterling. He's coming up from bantamweight. He's pretty much abandoned that division. He was the number 1 ranked guy coming off a loss to the champion. Probably wasn't going to get a title shot there, but at featherweight, if you lose here, it's wraps for your whole career, bro. Like, you're cooked. You're done. Because what are you going to do? Just be a random contender and be a just NPC top 10 guy at featherweight? Like, dead. If you're in this to get a title shot at featherweight, or what the fuck are you doing at this point? Because you've closed off the road to bantamweight. Have you seen Aljo? He looks fucking huge. He's bulked up beyond belief. That motherfucker's not getting back down to 35. And even if he does, I doubt the UFC wants him there now that O'Malley's champ. That was like, the UFC was just hoping for Aljo to lose, and then as soon as he lost, they've chucked him out and they've just locked the fucking gate and said, get out of here, bro. You're done. But if he wins, that's sick. He could arguably be 1 away. I think merit-wise, he should be 1 away from a title shot. But knowing the UFC, they would say, sorry, little bro, you got to win at least 4 more. You got to fight Josh Emmett. You got to fight fucking Max Holloway again. So just, like, anyone that they just don't want to give a title shot, yeah, Holloway, bro. Death by Holloway. Death by 400 strikes. So yeah, if Aljo loses, it's rough for him. He pretty much just leaves himself in no man's land and with no real interest surrounding his name. If he wins, though, it's great. But Kelvin Kattar, man, he's coming off an injury. He is the underdog in this fight, and that's another thing for Aljo, pressure on him in terms of the odds. But yeah, Kattar's coming off an injury. He's not favoured on the betting line. He's fighting a former champion, so if he wins, that's sick. That's a big name. And again, he's just this routine top 10, top 5 guy. He's never expected to just be a massive star or a top 3 guy. Like, if he wins this, no one's going to be like, damn, man, Kelvin Kattar, he's looking like a problem. You could be seeing him fight for the belt. Like, unless he goes out there and just starches Aljo in the first, like, stuffs all of his takedowns and just sleeps him on the feet, then maybe. But apart from that, I think Kattar's got all to gain, to be honest. So yeah, I think Kattar's got all to gain. I'm not going to make his pressure rating too high. Aljo, though, big pressure on him. He needs to get the win. But let's move on to the next fight. Alexandro Rakic versus Yiaparasa. I think the pressure on both of them is not crazy high, but it's not low either. So I'm giving Rakic a 5 out of 10 on the pressure rating, and I'm giving Yuri a 6 out of 10. I'm just giving Yuri slightly higher, given that he is, obviously both of them are coming off losses, but the storyline surrounding Rakic is different. He's coming off an injury. He's been out for ages. No one would be surprised if he just looks rusty coming back and just has a bad performance. But Yuri is coming off a KO loss to TKO loss to the champion. And given that it was a bit early, if a win here, he could definitely make a case for himself to get a title shot. But if he loses, that's really he'll still be a fan favourite. We can still see him in fun fights. The stock around him in terms of like people liking him or people wanting to watch his fights is not going to decrease. But I think it just leaves him a little bit further away from the title picture than Rakic. My opinion, maybe I'm wrong. And just given that Rakic is coming off an injury, I think that's just a little bit less pressure. And he doesn't have as much sort of bad blood or like bad performances against the top guys. Like Yuri's lost with his Rakic, apart from a close loss to Ozdemir, which I personally think he won. The injury to Blachowicz, that's a very different loss to a TKO for Yuri. So I think both of them are competing for either a title shot or maybe Jan Blachowicz in Europe, because both of these guys are European. That's where a lot of their beef stems from. But yeah, Rakic will also probably get made fun of online. Yuri, no one's really going to make fun of him as much online, so I guess the internet side of things is going to be kinder to Yuri if he loses. But yeah, both of them European guys, so I think the winner, if they don't get a title shot, I think we could see them fight Jan Blachowicz in Europe as a Fight Night main event, which would be sick. Imagine like a Fight Night Poland, Rakic versus Blachowicz rematch, or Yuri versus Blachowicz in Czech Republic. Like, that'd be sick. But yeah, winner, one away from a title shot or gets a title shot. Loser is bumped outside the top 5. And also another reason why I've got Yuri with a bit more pressure is just because he is higher ranked, so he will drop down a little bit more. I don't think Rakic would drop down if he loses. So yeah, that's my opinion on this fight, but let's move up to the main card. BoNichols versus Cody Brundage. Right off the bat, if BoNichols loses, you're cooked. It's over for you, little bro. It's your career's wraps. Just retire then and there. Go back to wrestling. You're not wanted. So yeah, 10 out of 10 pressure on BoNichols in my opinion. He has to win. If he loses, he's a meme forever. You can never recover. You're literally unpromotable if you lose to Cody Brundage. I don't care how many highlights they show of you left hooking Val Woodburn. It don't fucking matter if you lose to Cody Brundage. It's wraps. Your career's done. They're already slowballing you as it is and giving you preferential treatment, and if you lose to an absolute can, you're cooked. And a win does fuck all as well. No one's opinions on BoNichols is going to change if he wins. Even if he wins, if it's not literally a first-round dominant finish where Cody Brundage doesn't land a strike, people are still going to come out of this with criticisms. But as for Cody Brundage, he's expected to lose. No one gives a fuck. He might get cut. Maybe the UFC's nice to him and say, we fed you BoNichols, or like we fed you to BoNichols, so we'll be nice, we'll keep you around for one more. He is coming off 2 wins, so yeah, I guess the stakes for Cody Brundage is he might lose his incredibly illustrious 2-fight winning streak, but apart from that, I'm giving him a 1 out of 10 pressure rating. He's on a spotlight on the main card. He's the guy that's getting fed to BoNichols, and no one is really giving him a thought, so it's not going to matter if he loses. And if he wins, crazy. All the fucking hype in the world around Brundage is just going to get so much praise because people don't like BoNichols. But let's move on to the next fight. Charles Olivera versus Arman Tsarukyan. I think Charles Olivera has slightly more pressure on him, so I'm giving him an 8 out of 10, and I'm giving Arman Tsarukyan a 7 out of 10, just because of the age, and I think if Charles loses, God forbid, I don't think we see him get back to a title picture. He will still be an incredibly fun fighter, much like Yuri. I just don't think if either of those guys lose, we see them fight for a belt again. But if Arman loses and if Rakic loses, I do still think there is, less so for Rakic, but definitely for Arman with his young age. If he loses, I do think there's a much easier path to back to the title. Obviously, he will have to do work. He will have to probably win at least 3 more to get back there. But I think it's less, he's got the time to do it is what I'm saying. But Olivera, both guys obviously, in terms of a win, you get a title shot. The same stakes for both of them with a win. Charles could maybe get a Conor fight if he gets the W. Even if he loses, there probably still could be a Conor fight there, unless he just gets dusted. So yeah, I think the loser of this fight might end up fighting Gamrot. That's something, so for Arman, that would be a rematch. But that's what I think is at stake for both guys. With Arman Tsarukyan, I think there's a little bit more, I guess, I don't know, just like buzz around him. I get in terms of him versus Islam rematch is a bit more appealing to people than an Olivera Islam rematch, just because of how both of their fights went. Even though I still think, in terms of who's got a better chance to beat Islam, I will say 100%. Olivera has a better chance to win, but Arman has a better chance, like more times than not, to make it closer. So if you know what I mean, Olivera, I think, wins that fight maybe 4 out of 10 times. Arman, in my opinion, wins it 1 out of 10 times, but those 9 times that he loses, it's a lot closer than the 6 times that Olivera loses that fight. So that's my opinion. If I'm making sense, I'm probably not. But yeah, I think Olivera, slightly more pressure on him. He is the big star. Obviously, he's an underdog, so Arman. But I think a lot of people disagree with those lines, so I'm not going to take too much stock into those. But yeah, Olivera, a lot of pressure on him. Arman, still a lot of pressure. Anytime you get in a top 5 matchup with a title shot at stake, there's big pressure. But let's move on to the BMF fight. Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway. Now, you guys will probably agree with me, but I'm saying Justin Gaethje has a lot of pressure on him going into this fight, and I don't think Max Holloway has any pressure. The pressure cooker is all the way off for the Blessed Express. But for Justin Gaethje, that pressure cooker is all the way up. That fucking steam is coming out at full force, because he is cooked if he loses. If you lose Justin Gaethje, you're not getting another title shot. You're not getting another top, 5 fight, probably. Or knowing the UFC, he'll just fight Poirier again. But yeah, you're not getting another title shot if you lose this. Maybe you could look at a Conor fight. Maybe that's where you go. You just go down the money fights. But who does Gaethje fight if he loses? Does he fight the loser of, does he fight the loser of Olivera Saryukian or something? I just don't think he gives a fuck to fight Arman. He wants those big opportunities against those big name fighters. Justin Gaethje's last opponents have just been, it's now going to be Holloway, but before that, Poirier, Fiziev less so a big star, but Chandler, Olivera, Khabib, this guy is just fighting stars, and if he loses this, I just don't think you're in that same position anymore, just given what the other guys are doing in terms of their matchups. So, Gaethje, you're fighting a featherweight who's not ranked in your division. If you lose, you're definitely dropping down a couple spots in the rankings. And yeah, it's tough. If he wins, you're getting a title shot, but you already deserve the title shot. So it's not like you're making some big jump. You're just having to work extra for what you already should have got. And with Holloway, there's no pressure. He already fucking has a title shot basically locked up at featherweight whenever he wants to go back down. He's going to just take some time here, spend a couple minutes at lightweight, while Vulcan, Topuria, or whoever, or Topuria's next defense pans out. And yeah, unless he gets just brutally fucking Tony Fergusoned, which I don't think's going to happen, then I just don't think he loses that much stock. He's already coming up. He's already the, I guess, quote-unquote smaller guy. He's the underdog, and he's not losing a ranking. He's not dropping down in featherweight. He's number 1, or he's number 1 behind Volk, so number 2. But yeah, Holloway, I think, loses nothing, and with a win, you've now got title shots lined up in 2 divisions. You've got the world is your oyster. You can do what you want, and you're chilling. So let's move on to the next fight. Zhang Weili versus Yan Janan. So obviously the pressure's on Weili here. She's the big favorite. She's the champion. If she wins, cool. It's another defense. Good job. You're adding up to your legacy. You're getting closer to that strawweight GOAT title. Still probably needs a couple more wins or defenses to get that there. But if you lose, minus 1,000 social credit score, you're in the bin, and now all of a sudden you've just let this other Han Chinese woman beat you and you lost your belt. So maybe it's not disastrous. She could probably get a rematch, but you just don't want to have those losses. Right now she's at a good point in her career. Rose is the only one that's beaten her, really, and she's skedaddled. Rose is dipped. She's up at flyweight being shit at fighting. So Weili, she's got I think she smokes Tatiana Suarez, to be honest. I know everyone's I'm hearing so many people going, Suarez is the uncrowned champion. She's a nightmare, man. She's the female Khabib. Yeah, sorry, bro. The last time I thought there was a dominant wrestler in the women's division, she just lost 50-45 to Manon Fiorot. So Suarez, I think she's overrated. I think her wrestling is alright, but Weili looks so physically strong, and I think she would smoke her. So without Rose there, and even Rose I think she would beat right now, I think Weili's got a fucking free path as long as she's in her prime and not declining. I think she's got a free path to just become the strawweight GOAT and just rack up title defenses. But if she loses, all that goes away. You probably get a rematch in China, but Yeah, and Janan, she's nothing. She's got nothing to lose. She's already coming in as the underdog. She's the challenger. If she wins, you get the belt and you get to headline the UFC's return to China and defend against the woman you just beat. And if you lose, who gives a fuck? You're expected to lose. So let's move on to the main event. Alex Pereira versus Jamahal Hill. Now, this one, obviously, pressure's on both. It's a title fight. You've got the champion, so obviously he risks losing his belt. And then you've got Jamahal Hill as a former champion. Let's be real, his belt was fraudulent. But he's coming back and he's been chatting a whole bunch of shit, been getting real salty online, and he's just been criticizing so many fans and just refusing to accept that he might not be the best pound-for-pound fighter to ever live. And if you say otherwise, he will make a 20-minute video on you. Jamahal Hill he's on that same level as MMA Guru with Helwani. Like, MMA Guru, as soon as he hears Helwani's name, as soon as Helwani fucking speaks a word, bang, 45-minute video on the books. You already know it's coming. Same thing, if you fucking dare say in Jamahal Hill's Twitter replies, if you dare say, sorry Jamahal, I don't think you're pound for pound the best fighter to ever live, he will make a 25-minute video breaking down his statistics and why his win over Johnny Walker means that he's better than John Jones. But all that aside, pressure's on both, of course. Pereira, he's still got a big fan base. He's still a big star. He could probably still get back to the title shot pretty easy. And that's why I'm saying there's more pressure on Jamahal, because I think it's harder for Jamahal to get back to that spot. Obviously, Pereira does lose the belt, but he could fight in Brazil if he wins. He's got so much upside if he wins. And if he loses, yeah, it's tough, but you still got the star power. You could get a rematch. But Jamahal Hill, you've been chatting so much shit. You better fucking back it up, boy. That boy sounded fucking boy. Like, that sounded weird. I ain't that kind of Drew Dober sort of boy. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But Jamahal Hill, you are just going to get religiously made fun of online. Like, you are in endless shit if you fucking lose this, my guy. And yeah, I don't think you're getting back to that spot. You're not a big star. No one really likes you because you've just kind of been a dickhead and made yourself unlikable. And yeah, it's just rough. And also the fact that you lost your quote-unquote belt. It's not a fucking belt, let's be honest. You fought a vacant title fighter when you were ranked number 7 against the guy who just lost. It's not a belt. It's literally if they just make a top 10 matchup and say, chuck a belt on it, like, fuck off. But whatever. Jamahal, the fraudulent champion Hill, if he loses, then we're all going to kind of be like, yeah, fluky win, Glover was washed, you're not impressive. And if you win, then you can rub it in everyone's face, but we're still going to hate you. But that's it, guys. That is my official pressure ranking for UFC 300, Pereira versus Hill. Obviously, a massive card going down this weekend, and with so many former champions, with so many top 10 guys, top 15 guys or girls, whatever, and big stakes, there's a lot of pressure on a lot of fighters. So as you can see on the left there, we got all 26 ranked in order. I'll run through them real quick. BoNichols right at the top. Jamahal Hill, Kayla Harrison, Justin Gaethje, Aljamain Sterling, Alex Pereira, Zhang Weili, Charles Olivera, Arman Sukin, Davison Figueiredo, Yiaparasa, Alexandro Rakic, Sadik Yusuff, Bobby Green, Kelvin Kattar, Jaylen Turner, Jessica Andrade, Janan, Diego Lopez, Marino Rodriguez, Cody Garbrandt, Renato Moicano, Max Holloway, Holm, Cody Brundage, and then Jim Miller. I think that is the order. Obviously, some of them do have the same ranking, but that is my rough order in terms of who's under the most pressure. Number 1, of course, is BoNichols, and I think the person with the least pressure is Jim Miller. But yeah, let me know if you guys agree. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. You know, UFC 300. It's got me like Dana right there, as you can see. The load is maximum. And yeah, it's a fucking sick card, and we're looking forward to it, and we're looking forward to the storylines that come out. And if these guys and girls do, you know, live up to the pressure or overcome the pressure and have a good performance, or if they crumble and they fold like a lawn chair and shit the bed. So yeah, see you guys in the next one. Peace out.